So today if you thought I was heady before, today we're really gonna be heady. Before we go into the heart-based distance healing session, okay? So I want to talk about cancer and mitochondria and what that has to do with the Bengston Method, all right? So most people think that energy healing is pure magic, and they get very devoutly faithful, and the way to make something magic work more is you believe in it, and that's not how I work, all right? I think that that there's a mechanism with energy healing, that there are probably many mechanisms with energy healing, just like there's like 12 main causes of cancer, 12 main biochemical causes of cancer, not like radioactivity and emotions, not that level, but like some tumors are insulin dependent, some of them aren't. Some tumors seem to have more responsive to this, that, and the other, which is why you get biopsies and you test them, because they all respond quite differently. There's different mechanisms. So, like, I once worked with someone whose tumor, well, many times I've worked with people whose tumors just aren't cooling. But the first time I did this, I thought, oh, I remember. Bengston said that fasting is, that his method doesn't work very well if you're fasting. So I asked my patient if she was fasting, and she said she hadn't really eaten since yesterday lunch, and it was 11 in the morning, so almost 24 hours later, right? I think she was on a multi-day fast, because cancer responds to the autophagy of fasting, so that's a good thing to do if you've got cancer. And I said, would you mind if I gave you like half a banana, and we'll see if your tumors respond a little different? And she did, and lo and behold, within about 10 minutes, her body was robustly responding. There was a sense of flow. The tumors cooled down. There was a cool breeze. There was a sense of peace that came into the room. And that has been repeated many times in my working with the Bengston Method. Either distance or healing. I ask people not to come to the sessions super duper fasted, right? It's okay to skip a meal, but maybe not a day of meals, and still have the Bengston Method work. Now, I don't know if it's still working and if it's just slower. I don't know if it's just working with, differently, and so it just feels different. So I don't really know that, but I know that it certainly responds to having a little carb in your diet. So that's, so I'm a dietitian, so I was thinking of, okay, what's the mechanism of action of fasting? Like, what's different in the body aside from a lot of things? And I would say, my first place to go is the mitochondria. So mitochondria have a chemical pathway called the Krebs cycle, and when it's using glucose to produce ATP or energy, it does very fast, kind of like kindling on a fire. When it uses ketone bodies or the substrates of fat, it's more like a slow burning log, which is why I thought, okay, if the mitochondria are doing something different with the Bengston Method when they're fasting versus not, it could be that it's not that it doesn't work, it's that it works very differently, maybe slower, maybe just different signs. Maybe I'm so used to seeing that what's normal for me is to work with people who are not in ketosis and who are not fasting. That happens occasionally, but most people don't do that. Although I think it's a good thing to try for cancer. So, so if in my clinical experience, my patient is acting like kind of sort of responding, but not this robust, sense of flow, sense of release, sense of something happening, intuitively, and also just, you can feel it with your hand. You can just see the demeanor and their mood change, the emotional weather of the room changes. So if none of that's happening at a very dramatic pace, the main thing I look for usually is food, and I ask them to eat. And yeah, and this sort of works with acupuncture too. So you might know that I'm an acupuncturist. I would always tell my patients to come to acupuncture not too full and not too hungry. Not too full it's like all your energy is going into your digestion, and I would feel like it wasn't available for the acupuncture. And if they were too hungry, it's like there wasn't any chi. So is chi related to the glucose metabolism in the mitochondria with the Krebs cycle doing its thing, or is it something more? I think it's connected. I don't know that it's exactly the same. It's not one-to-one, but I think they're very, very, very closely connected. Because think of it, if you have a lot of chi in your body, you have a sense of vitality. And if you don't have a lot of chi in your body, you're tired. And one of the best ways to perk up your energy, other than caffeine, is to help your mitochondria, by eating really well. And anyway, mitochondria health is a huge, huge topic. So this is not a proven mechanism, right? This is me just being kind of curious. So other like biochemical curiosities, it seems like younger people respond more robustly than older people. So if I'm treating somebody who's 30, they seem to more reliably respond than somebody who's 90. 90, it feels like it's a little harder. So what is that? Is that telomeres? Is the energy medicine tapping right into the heart of cellular vitality that gets worn out as we age? And worn out is there, that's a whole, the theory of aging is a whole bunch of stuff. But I like to think that the energy therapy, the reason people feel so much better is it's interacting with this very, very fundamental thing. So how would that affect cancer? Because isn't cancer incurable, and isn't cancer, in the DNA? So how in the world would the Bengston Method affect the DNA of these cells? Like, that doesn't seem like energy could do that. Energy therapy could do that. However, there's the whole theory of cancer that says that it actually doesn't start in the DNA as mutations. It starts in the mitochondria as changes that then affect the DNA. And that the mitochondria is actually a more fundamental, you think that DNA is the most fundamental, but what's the DNA sourced by? And something as simple as eating or not eating affects your mitochondria. Matrilineal mitochondria come from our mothers, in men and in women. It's a matrilineal line. So like psychospiritual ancestry working with the mother energy, and is, tapping into the divine feminine. These are all things that are curiosities of mine, whether they're metaphors or whatever. All I can say is that when I tap into these things, meaning I tune to them, I think about them, I invite them into the room with me as I'm giving a session, they make the treatments work better. So I don't know if it's just the story, or if it's actually, if it was studied, it would turn out to be true. In some sort of placebo double-blind controlled study. But just knowing a little bit about I know a lot about biology. I'm like all but dissertation in neurophysiology, and registered dietitian and science geek person. So I feel like a lot of my science background helps me be a better energy therapist, because it just gives me ideas of things to try that are a little different. Okay, so again, I don't present this as a hard hypothesis, or it's just a curiosity, my observations. I think I'm pretty good at understanding when something's a metaphor and when my direct experience needs some sort of language, so I cloak it with a story, but I know that it's a story. I kind of know the difference between making something up that helps me put a container around an experience and peer-reviewed research. And I think both are important for healing. Yeah. All right. So healing is magic in the way that it seems to defy known mechanisms. But I would posit that just because they're not known doesn't mean that they aren't there. And there's a lot to think about of possibilities if you want to. So that means that we can observe and learn and get better at not blocking the healing. Because I don't know that, because the Bengston Method is so very, very, very neutral, right? It's so neutral that you're not really even healing. You're just connecting, and the healing happens between the healer and their source energy. So we're not really doing any healing. We're just spinning and connecting and then watching, and the healing happens maybe. But this idea of looking and wondering about mechanisms, for me as a scientist and as a long-term health professional, it helps me create an intimacy with the body, bringing what I know about the body into relationship with the energy healing. And I let them combine, and I let them talk to each other, and I wonder about them. And maybe this is only me, and I have a strong biomedical background, but a lot of my patients have a strong biomedical background too. Or they just understand that they are so steeped in the culture of biological medicine, that their unconscious mind is attuned to that. So I think that, again, that's a way of having intimacy with the process of finding newer and newer things to observe, and maybe not do formal experiments with, although you certainly could, but to connect with possibilities. So anyway, I would love your comments about how you bridge. Maybe this whole thing has just been like, how do we bridge the world of science with the world of phenomenon that we don't even know how to, well, there's ways to study them, but it's just so in the future where we would actually get usable results. Well, I shouldn't say that. Energy medicine is being researched all the time, but it can help us. All right, and I feel like there's one more thing I need to say about all this. Just let me know if this is kind of sort of helpful, or if it feels like it's too heady and you're actually just sort of needing some help right now. And that's important feedback for me, because I do want this group to heal people. Not that we're doing it, but we are creating a container where that happens regularly. Anyway, heal meaning we've stimulated the natural healing forces, and to varying degrees of results. Okay. All right.